Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Bruce.
Lionel.
Bruce.
Lionel.
I think there's mice in the studio.
Are there again?
Probably. I think it's Kelly's fault.
Oh, did he leave the snacks line, the big bucket of cheese balls open again?
Yeah, Kelly left his big buck.
I'll bring the cat in tomorrow. She'll take
Kelly
care
is like always walking around with one of those buckets of cheese balls under his arm.
I know, and he's just dipping in there, and there's orange streaks all over the place and everything. It's just...
He's like a longtime smoker. He now permanently has...
Orange fingers.
Yeah, orange fingers.
Cheese ball fingers.
Cheese ball fingers.
Back in the day, it'd be nicotine stains. Now he's got cheese ball stains.
Utz.
Utz fingers.
Utz fingers. Spring's coming, Bruce.
Yes, it is.
It's beautiful out there now. It's like the end of March, almost April. Or it might even be April. Matt,
in that case, the maple syrup's probably getting right into full swing or just finishing up production for all that beautiful nectar of the gods that comes out of our maple trees.
Yes, that forest that's not far from my house that I walk through is they got to have somebody. I don't exactly know who owns the forest, but they tap a lot of those trees.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's really kind of interesting to see maple syrup come out of the trees.
It is. Just drips out in a bucket and away you go.
And you know why it's called maple syrup?
Because it doesn't come from a birch tree?
Right. It comes from a maple tree.
Yeah, that's right. But there is birch syrup. There's such a thing as birch syrup.
Is there really?
There is really, and it's not bad. You need to boil it down. The sugar content's not quite as high as maple syrup, so you need more volume of syrup to give you the volume of, or more volume of sap to get the same volume of syrup. But it's not a bad tasting thing.
I wonder how maple syrup was discovered. Like how would they have hundreds of years ago or whenever it was discovered, how would you discover there is such a thing in maple trees as maple syrup?
You can only imagine that way back in the day, one of the natives was walking and, noticed the sap dripping and tasted it and not bad. And then somewhere along the line, they figured if you boiled it down, it got sweeter.
And the way back,
it's like mushrooms. Like, who's the first guy who figured out mushrooms are okay to eat?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, wait, Bill ate that one. That's not good. But Bob over there, well, let's eat that one. Bob's still alive, so.
Maple syrup was first made and used by the indigenous peoples of North America. The practice was adopted by European settlers who gradually changed production methods. Technological improvements in the 1970s further refined syrup processing. Virtually all of the world's maple syrup is produced in Canada and the United States. The Canadian province of Quebec is the largest producer, responsible for 70% of the world's output. Canadian exports of maple syrup in 2016 were 487 million. Wow.
That's a lot of syrup.
With Quebec.
And that's where a few years ago somebody broke into a warehouse in Quebec and made off with a whole pile of maple syrup, which they managed to recover. But that was a big deal. They stole several hundred drums of maple syrup.
Well, I'd love to be hanging around those guys when they thought that this was their, hey, you know what we ought to steal? It's maple syrup.
Exactly. We sell it in the market downtown, nobody will know.
Years ago, here's a story I've never told. Years ago, I was with one of my biking buddies, and he was actually an undercover police officer with undercover with bike gangs.
All right.
So we were gonna go do some ride in a couple of weeks on a weekend, right? And so I says to him, I said, "Well, can you do that? Like, can you plan ahead for take a couple of days off?" And he says, "Oh yeah, sure." And I said, "Well, won't the gang kind of wonder where you are?" And he went, "No, they're criminals. They're not that smart."
And what's he doing in the bike ride with the cops?
There's our guest. He's rubbing.
There's the mouse again.
Yeah, he's rubbing that microphone on his beard again. All right, let's get to this because he's.
All right.
I got a feeling
he's impatient.
He's impatient, yeah. So tonight we're going to talk to somebody we've talked to before, and his name is Greg Javanello.
Yes.
and it's Javonill, and I always thought it was En, but it's On. Javanello. I first met him at a Springfield train show, and he just came up to me and he said it was his. He'd come. I think we'll ask him. You know what the first question we'll ask him is? What year
How did
was?
you meet Lionel?
No, what year was it that we met in Springfield?
Oh, there you go.
And anyways, he lives in New Orleans.
Right.
And he'd come, I think his parents were from the Northeast somewhere. And anyways, he just came up and introduced themselves. And then we did a little recording, I think, that day. And then when we had him on the podcast 3 or 4 years ago, and he's back. But there's huge changes. He is now the president of the Crescent City Model Railroad Club.
Excellent.
So, Greg, come on in here from the green room.
How's it going, guys?
You came in awful
He's
fast.
going good.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you don't run down the hall.
It's the new lighted hallway. They can see where they're going now.
yeah, exactly. It was like it should have dramatic pause there would have been ideal.
Dramatic pause.
Yeah, dramatic pause. Like I would have said, "Hey, come on in, Greg," and you would have been like, "Oh, hey, how you doing, guys?" That kind of thing. So, what year was it that we first met? Do you remember?
I want to say it was 2018.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like about right. Sounds like 4 years ago. Yeah, that's because when you were on the podcast, I guess, was like 4 years ago. I could actually look that up right now while we're talking if I was so inclined. And then then you were like a little while after that. We had you on the podcast. And where are you from originally?
So I was originally born in Rhode Island, the state that you just love to make fun of. And but I was I was a military brat, so we moved around a lot. So spent some time in South Carolina, spent some time in Norfolk, Virginia, and then after my father left the service, we ended up in Massachusetts because that's where my mother's family's from.
Okay.
So,
and then did I have that right? You were visiting your parents, or you stayed with your parents when you go to Springfield?
Yeah, I like I said, that first time that I went there, and then the subsequent time that I went there, I went out there. I went up there, and then what I did was I stayed with them for a day, and then I caught a charter bus that Amherst that is arranged. Someone charters a bus that goes all the way from Cape Cod all the way out to Springfield, and they make a couple of stops along the way. And one of the stops was in a town that was maybe like 15 minutes away from where my parents live. So I said, well, might as well do that. That way I don't have to worry about driving back after the show and being tired and stuff like that. So I said, and it was, the fee included the bus ride and the admission to the show. You couldn't get any better than that. So,
and is that the year did you come up to me and you were sitting with some guy that had made an app or something?
Yeah. So I was sitting on the bus, and there was a gentleman that was sitting in front of me, and he seemed fairly technologically savvy, unlike me tonight. And he said, "Well, yeah, I got this little app that I kind of just put together." And I was, I'm thinking to myself, and back then I was like, "How do you put together an app?" And he said, "Oh, you just go on this little thing here," and he came up with it. And I said, "That's really neat," because it had like a map of all the different buildings, and it had the different vendors listed and everything. And I was like, "Wow, that's pretty neat." So that's when I think I showed it to you. Was it the first of this? I think I showed that to you the second year that I saw you. Okay. And I think it was me and you. We walked over to John Sacerdotti's office, and we showed it to him. And what I think, and he's a computer. That was his business, right? Computers and programming, things like that.
Something like that, yeah.
So, but I don't think it went anywhere, only because the gentleman that did it kind of did it on his own. It was kind of, I don't think we could scale it up very easily. And he had recommended a buddy of his that could do something like that, and I think even that was a little too big of a project even for him. So I think that's where we left it.
I think when we were talking to John this year, I think he said it somehow they'd organized it up or something.
Yeah.
These here's for 2022. The bus is from Long Island, New York, and it departs the park and ride at Route 110 at 6:30 a.m. Then in Broadway Mall at 6:50 a.m. There's no point in us reading this because the show came and went. Did you go to the show this year? I didn't see you.
No, was it? Well, the show the last show wasn't it? It was all digital, wasn't it?
This is stay with us, Greg. This is like the spring. It's like the 1st of April or the end of March. So did you go to the show this year, Greg?
Absolutely, it was great.
I didn't. Oh, I remember you came up to me on Saturday around noon.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I think so. And you were in the group picture that we do at 2 p.m. I remember you because I remember you kept putting your hand up in front of my face and I had to put it down.
Yeah, I kept shutting my eyes as the picture.
Yeah, exactly. You kept shutting your eyes. So we had to keep taking it over and over again. Where did you stay this year when you went to the show? Same deal. You stayed at your parents'?
No. So I'm actually I sprung for a lovely hotel room this year. So,
oh, cool.
Some spacious accommodations. I think it's where was it again? I think it was at the Fairfield Inn. I think that's Fairfield Inn and Suites. I think that's where I'm going to be at.
All right. Well, it was good to see. Are you coming to the AML dinner on Saturday night? Or did you come to the AML dinner on Saturday night?
Oh, it's so confusing talking past and future all at once.
Yes, it is.
The dinner was lovely.
Did you go to the hockey game with us? Because I was busy. I didn't see everybody.
I don't think I made that.
Okay, that was on Friday night.
Yeah.
Because if you did go, you would have had a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm so disappointed in myself.
Okay, so now, are you still working at the same place? Because it seemed to me, I remember you were somehow in the food industry, restaurant industry.
Yeah, so I'm still working for the same company. This is going to be 15 years, I think, in October.
Holy mackerel!
Yeah.
How old of a man are you?
So by the time this airs, so I will be 40 when this airs.
It wasn't a trick question.
Yeah. I'm going to take a shot in the dark here, Bruce, and say I think he was born in 1982.
There you go.
I'm 39 and holding.
Okay, there you go. So you've been with those guys, and somehow you're in the restaurant food industry where you do something with restaurants.
Yeah, so we it's a distribution company. So we sell to the restaurants in New Orleans and the surrounding areas, and then we also do some chain business. So it's these past few years have been very challenging.
I'll bet they've been very difficult. So what's happened? Let's see. So you somehow, I don't take this the wrong way. But I was not shocked. Shocked isn't the word. I was pleasantly surprised when you told me that you are now the president of the Crescent City Model Railroad Club.
Yeah, so it was one of those things where somebody put my name, and I guess I somehow in our small organization ran unopposed, and I was elected, and probably because of my I do spend a lot of time at the club, or at least as much as I can. So I guess the committee took notice and decided to throw me in. So,
do you think it had anything to do with your association with the AML Nation?
That might have been a deciding factor for many of the voters.
Okay, that's good.
There you go.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that first, because you had somehow you contacted me or something. Why are you here? I forget now, because you contacted me, didn't you?
Yeah, so I contacted you because we.
Well, that's right. You got wiped out in the hurricane, and you were looking for any way to kind of get the word out that you guys could use some help.
That was the thing. I was pulling out all the stops, as they say, and uh, we I reached out to you only because I knew you had a wide exposure to people that that support the hobby, of course. So I had reached out to I'd reached out to Joshua Barton and Mike Buddy, who are friends with Ken Patterson, and they spread the word. And I had another friend of mine, or another member of the club, who had reached out to John Abaticola. So
Oh yeah,
we're like I said, we're trying to get the word out as much as possible. And we've also been communicating, sort of unrelatedly, but with Chris Palmieri, who you just had on a recent show about concerning his new venture, his home shops.
yeah.
So in fact, I was just talking to him today. He wanted, hey, can we? He had some ideas of how we could kind of make some business cards to hand out at people at Amherst and trying to get the word out that way. So I said, great. Like I said, any exposure that we can get would greatly help us.
Chris
So
Palmieri is a going concern.
yeah,
He's like,
yeah,
I think I'm a constant disappointment to Chris because I don't always answer his messages right away.
yeah,
I don't answer everybody's messages right away, but I try. I do my best.
yeah.
Um.
So
So how is he helping you then? Let's go
well,
through. Let's go through each thing. So let's start with Ken Patterson. So did those guys talk about it on the What's Neat This Week show?
yes, they did. I reached out to Joshua and I reached out to Mike. Great, both fantastic guys. I've been to Joshua's restaurant in St. Louis, and I met Mike Buddy at one of the hobby shops over in St. Charles, and they're great guys. They're just as nice in person as they present themselves, on the podcast. And he said absolutely. And I think it was maybe about three. Well, it's going to be probably about 3 months ago. We'll keep that going. He, they they had done like a little 5 minute segment on his weekly show, and I had shared some photographs that we had taken of the aftermath, and they kind of did a little photo montage of things of what the club looked like before and what it looks like now. And so I was very thankful for that. And then uh, one of the other members, Kent Mason, who was the former president, he has a I think he does a weekly he participates, I think it's in a weekly podcast with like Michelle Kempema and John Abaticola, and he in the midst of their podcast.
He mentioned it.
he, he, met-
I didn't know there was other podcasts. Did you know that, Bruce?
I've heard rumors about that.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it's possible that there could be other podcasts out there, I suppose.
Yeah.
John Abaticola is a very and Michelle Kempema. Michelle Kempema is one of my favorites of all time. And John Abaticola is always looking to help fellow modelers. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whatever he can do to. I can see both of those people being very receptive to helping you guys as much as they could.
Yeah, of course, I listened to all the footage that they created for that, and we've kind of linked everything through our Facebook page, on our website. So, and we're, like I said, we're keeping everything up to date as far as the developments with the club.
So that was Hurricane Ida. When was the Hurricane Ida? When did it blow through there?
August 29th. And the reason I remember that date, not only because I actually lived through the Category 4 storm, but because it's the same date as Hurricane Katrina, which devastated this area in 2005. So and it's kind of a creepy coincidence.
Yeah, you weren't there in 2005, though, were you? You hadn't moved there yet, had you?
No, it's
okay. So all right, let's not. But what about? Not sorry to cut you off, but that was rude of me, and I apologize. That's something I got to learn to get better at. Don't you think, Bruce?
No comment.
Okay, but
But on
Ida.
the other hand,
Yeah, but on the other hand, yeah. But okay, so Ida came through August 29th of 2021,
hmm
and you were there, like a Category 4. You didn't leave New Orleans?
Yeah, silly me. Believe it or not, I actually had I had a flight out that day, and everybody at the office was saying, "Oh, it'll jog to the west, and it won't hit us directly as it did, and we'll be fine." And I've been through hurricanes like that where it's done that. Of course, even the Weather Channel, they'll hype it up to where it'll be mass devastation and it's predicted to hit you directly, square on the dot, and then it'll jog, and then nothing happens, and we don't get so much as a breeze.
Right.
So, uh, but and we didn't get it, even though we didn't get a direct hit. It was still a Category 4 storm, and it was still, it was still very bad for us. It could have been worse. Areas south and west of us got just devastated. I mean, I'm talking leveled, and all those people still need a lot of help. A lot of people, still have blue tarps on their roofs. Some people didn't get power for a month and a half, just because there was basically not even a pole up to hook wires to. So yeah, it was bad.
Um. So okay, so then the hurricane goes through. You survive. Did you how much damage did your own personal residence sustain? Was it very much, or?
So I had a small section of fence down, and I had a window that blew out, and uh, that was kind of scary too, because I didn't know what I was going to do, because I was trying to patch the window as the wind was still blowing. And luckily, I have a really good neighbor next to me, Mr. Larry, and he, God love him, he's 70 something years old. He hurried up, put a poncho on, and he was like helping me patch up the window in the middle of the storm while the wind was blowing.
Wow.
And the wind is coming, and the wind and the rain's coming in through the window. And we got it patched. We basically got the window closed off with cardboard and duct tape. And but that was the extent of my damage. And then of course we lost power. So I lost power for, I want to say, 10 days in the Louisiana sweat and and man, that is not fun. I've been through hurricanes before, and I've lost it for like 7 days.
Right.
10 days is just, you can't even imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I had being a northern boy, when that hurricane I was in, the power went out for 2.5 days, and by 36 hours, I was thinking, what was I thinking coming down here? And I mean, I got lucky. They were talking 7-10 days, and then 2.5 days later, the power came on, and you're like, oh, thank God the power's on.
Yeah,
because you run out of things to do. You're trying to save your phone, you can't. And without any kind of communication, you can only walk so much and stuff like that. So, okay. So then how long was it after the hurricane went through and you were able to gather your thoughts? How long was it until you went down to the club?
I want to say it was probably maybe a week, probably not even a week, maybe 5 days or so. A lot of the board members of the club had evacuated. They had gone to points north and points west, and there was one of our members. He actually went to the club the next day, right after the storm, and took some pictures, purely just for for insurance purposes and stuff like that, hoping that obviously document as much as possible.
Yeah.
And then because he didn't have any power, he left town and stayed with some family friends out in, I think it was Mississippi somewhere. And then I think it was maybe about 5 days later, we managed to get a couple of people up on the roof to kind of just put the most basic tarps and just basically cover up the gaping holes in the roof. And that's and then we started to kind of go into the club and kind of assess what's going on. And it was bad. Could it have been worse? Absolutely, it could have been worse. But and of course, none of us have ever had ever had to quote unquote evacuate a train club. I mean, who has experience doing that?
Yeah.
So what we did is, I mean, we literally had branches and trees inside the club, and I'm not talking about the ones made by Woodland Scenics.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. I'm looking at some of the photos from the YouTube video, which if you go to Crescent City Model Railroad Club, their YouTube channel is Crescent City Model Railroad Club, and there's a video there. It's about 1.5 minutes long, and it shows photos from inside the club, and like, wow, you guys got a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got thumped pretty good.
Yeah. So what we did was we basically, we put some plastic coverings on the parts of the layout where we could, that were directly under holes in the roof. I want to say we took out about 90% of all the trains. We packed them up into boxes, and right now the majority of the collection is in a secure, temperature-controlled storage unit in Baton Rouge. And we packed up the DCC system. We disconnected all that. Took out the laptops that we use for operations, and we just started to, like I said, basically triage the whole situation and just try to save as much assets as we possibly could.
Yeah, looking at the picture, looking at the pictures, it looks like there's a lot of gunk and goo got along some of the equipment in there. Did you clean the equipment, or you just got it in controlled storage pending cleaning?
As far as like we really didn't clean a lot of stuff. I think that most of the locomotives that we had that were like custom painted for our road name, those went to a separate with a separate member, and he's been kind of caring for those. So he may have done something, but I'm to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure if he's even tried testing them out or anything like that. But that will come. So, but I think for the most part, most of the trains were pretty safe.
Okay.
We usually don't leave like whole trains, just throughout the layout. We kind of usually will keep them in separate yards throughout the layout. So most of the stuff was kind of congregated in a couple locations. So, obviously that's a blessing. So you got to thank yourself for that.
Yeah,
so
they were relatively safe then.
Yeah, they're relatively safe. And then there were areas of the layout that were thankfully weren't touched. So we've moved some of the rolling stock, some of the passenger cars and things like that. We've kind of moved those to places where there wasn't an immediate threat of future damage. So
was it was it really demoralizing, or was it because there's a bunch of you, like your members each of you could be disappointed together? Was it really demoralizing, or was it just kind of like, well, we got to roll up our sleeves and we got to figure this out, guys, that kind of thing?
It was a little bit of both. We were lucky. The club was lucky before I was a member to have survived Katrina. So, and then to kind of go through something like this, it was, yeah, it's demoralizing. But with Louisiana and the culture and the frequent hurricanes that we got, it was kind of like, in many respects, the individual members who have kind of been through hurricanes, they kind of like, look, we're just, just like you said, we're just going to kind of roll up our sleeves and we're going to get through this. No one had ever specifically, like I said before, evacuated a train club before.
Yeah.
So it was a learning experience, to say the least.
So you
So
guys, the train club would look, by the looks of the damage, you guys were pretty much right in the path of the thing, eh?
yeah, well, I think it's if you've ever been through a hurricane and you've ever seen the forecasting of how they do it, it's they always talk about like the the northeast like
Yeah, yeah,
quadrant or something
yeah.
like that. And yeah, we were kind of in that quadrant. The eye though did pass to the west of us. So areas like Lake Charles, which is kind of on the way going to Houston, they got hit twice because the year before they had gotten hit by Hurricane Zeta, and then again they got hit by Ida. So you really kind of feel for people in that area. And then the people to the south of us, the people that are literally right on the water, um, in places like Homa and Thibodeau, they got the storm surge, so they got the water. So the
So,
the hurricane for us was primarily a wind event,
right.
but for them it was the storm surge. So they were up to their roofs in water just from the storm surge.
So how far? So you guys don't ever have to worry about storm surge. You're far enough away from the water that that's not really a concern.
Yeah, yes and no, because it depends on the path of the hurricane. So if it's something where the hurricane would push water into the up the Mississippi River, or some portion of the Mississippi River where the river would actually kind of flow backwards, then we would kind of have to worry about storm surge.
Right.
Um, but we're far away from the Gulf, where Gulf storm surge really isn't a really
Right.
wouldn't be an issue. Yeah.
Okay. But it's, I mean, it's like it's an interesting problem. You know.
Yeah.
So whereabouts are you guys now? Because I mean, there was definite heavy duty damage to the roof. Like, where are you guys at? Like, have you been able to start fixing it, or are you just still trying to get the money together? Or
So, the first thing that we did was, we're in the club. So I'm the president, and I'm going through, trying to find the paperwork with the insurance policies and things of that nature. And I'm like, well, I physically had to break into a locked file box to figure that out.
right?
Only to be disappointed by the lack of coverage that we did have.
Oh, dear.
So yeah, that was huge disappointment number one. And I'm, I've never been the president of a volunteer organization. I've been a member of other, sort of civically minded organizations before,
Right.
involved in church and stuff like that. But it's, you know,
Well,
you never have a full grasp of what, especially an organization that's been around as long as we have. You never get a full grasp of everything that you're technically responsible for. Nobody, in an
Yeah.
organization like ours, nobody sits you down and says, "Here, you got to do X, Y, and Z, and you're responsible for A, B, and C." Nobody ever does that. You just kind of like
Fly-
get things,
Yeah.
fly by the seat of your pants, tackle things as they come to you.
And
So
you seem to me, from what I know of you, you seem to me to be a pretty responsible guy and would take it fairly personally. That okay, so whoever was in charge before didn't get insurance, but you're the president now, so you want to do the best you can to rectify the situation.
yeah, um, I'm determined. Like, you know, the boat's not going to go down with me in it.
Right.
And the train ain't going off the trestle with me in it either.
So it sounds like you guys are up against it right now. I mean, I see you got a GoFundMe page, and we'll put that on the website when you do it. But I mean, you guys have raised, what do you guys have raised, like $4,200 so far, right? $4,300.
Yeah, we've got a little bit more than that. That's been donated from local sources, not necessarily through the internet. So, we're getting there.
Yeah, like how did you determine you needed $25,000? Did you have somebody come in and give you a rough estimate, or?
So this is an interesting story. So We had a member of our group, and he recommended another former member of the group, who's an actual like structural engineer, I believe he is, and uh, we just got the contact information, and that 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 3 or 4 days after uh, when I had visited the club for the first time, we'd actually gotten him out there, and he was the guy that kind of temporarily patched up the roof with the tarps and a little bit of the and some and some plywood and a little bit of that. So we had a member that had a member that hadn't necessarily been a part of the club for about 15-20 years, came back, and he was the one that actually helped us patch up the roof temporarily.
Right. You had a former member that jumped in and did whatever he could right away.
Yeah, so he's still a model railroader at heart, and he has because he spent even more time at the club than I had up to this point. He had obviously he had a soft spot for us
Yeah.
to help us out. So like I said, he took it upon himself to climb up on the roof himself and patch up where he could temporarily.
What's his name?
Dennis Foss.
Hey, Dennis Foss. Way to go, buddy. Way to go, Dennis. So is the club just like, are you guys going to it, or you're just waiting to gather the money, or like, where are you at right at this moment? Like, is it?
So, all right. So we've managed. So basically, we have made a lot of progress, and I'm thankful for that. We've gotten all the debris out of the proper off the outside property. We're keeping the lawn mowed. We have cleared a lot of we've cleaned up the layout as much as we can. We've cleaned up all the debris that you see in the pictures. That's all gone. We've cleaned up a lot of we've pulled everything out from under the layout. And we've kind of further assessed, where water is penetrating into the building. And we're on our way to kind of to rebuilding. But again, we just need that, we need those crucial funds to pay for the roof, to stay liquid, and to keep our expenses, to keep our expenses covered.
Yeah. Have you thought of reaching out to John Sacerdoti and the Amherst Railway? What is it called? Railway Society, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Amherst Railway.
The Amherst Model Railway Society, something like that.
Yeah. But anyways,
they do donations.
They do. Like every year they take their money and they spread it out amongst model railroads and railroad projects. You guys should maybe contact them, because I bet you they'd. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I can't speak for them, but it sounds exactly like the kind of thing where they go to help.
Yeah. I think I had thought of that earlier, in the process, but like I said, there's so many moving parts to the recovery process that I haven't gotten there yet, but I think that's one of the things that I should probably tackle next.
Yeah, it sounds like a huge load was dumped right in your lap, being the president. You picked the right time to be. You picked the wrong time to. What's that from Blazing Saddles? From Airplane. Lloyd Bridges.
I picked the wrong day to stop sniffing glue.
Yeah. So how long had you been president before this happened?
So officially, I think it was 2 years that I had actually been president, and so we, just like any organization, we are a corporation. So, we had our quarterly business meetings, and we had, we would, members would meet on Fridays and stuff like that. But it was all, just like any organization, it was all very casual. It was very, like I said, nobody had any kind of inkling as to the amount of work and the amount of just trying to search and find out, like, what are the next steps in doing this. It's mind boggling, and but you know, like,
it must be even more difficult. Again, I cut you off. I apologize.
that's okay.
But it must be even more difficult because it's not your own place where you can just make decisions. Kind of, I'm assuming most major decisions you got to talk to the board or whoever before you move ahead. So it must be kind of a slow process sometimes.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, we have a group text with all our with the board members. So anything that's of pertinent information or pertinent pressing need, we're a group text. We're only a group text away from for the most part, and pretty much most people, because everybody's addicted to their phones these days. Everybody can see if the president says something, or if the treasurer says something, we can, the message gets out, and usually most people respond within the day or so. And then, and if it's something really urgent, then, I'm actually on the phone and physically calling people, not just waiting for a notification on my phone.
Can you repeat that part? Because I was looking at my phone. How old is the Crescent City Club?
So we were founded in 1956. So that's 68.
Yeah.
Yeah. 68.
And who was in that area, Bruce? That we did Frank Ellison? No.
Frank Ellison was the Delta Line that was down in New Orleans. Yes,
Yeah.
one of our legends.
And was he ever involved with the club?
I don't think that he was particularly, but we do have a section of our layout that's actually called Ellison. And so we did do that. But Andy Sporandio was a founding member of our club.
Yeah,
really?
I knew Andy.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yes.
Yeah.
Andy was heavily involved in the club.
So Andy, and the cars that Chris Palmieri is developing with home shops. One of them is going to be our Crescent Lines logo is going to be on one of those cars, and I believe Andy Sporandio, and along with two other of our founding members, are also, their names are going to be on the cars.
Oh, okay.
He's Chris has kind of shared some kind of pre-production graphics with us, and we've kind of been going back and forth about how we're going to number the cars, and
I see on your page here there's thing called Who's Who, and I'm looking at the wrong. Never mind, I'm looking at the wrong. Never mind.
Okay.
I was looking at the Amherst Railway Society of. So it's Chris Palmieri. I might edit that part out, Bruce, but it's sometimes the goof ups are just as good as anything. We'll have meetings.
Yes, we'll have multiple meetings. And
Greg, of course, you can be part of those.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, I didn't give away too much information as far as
what, Chris?
Yeah, with his project.
No. With Chris, he's coming up. He's talked all about it on the podcast. I think it's coming up in another, like after we're recording this. I think it was in February or something like that. Chris was telling us about the Crescent City cars.
Oh, okay, good.
That's just what do you think of that idea? I think that is an idea that Chris Palmieri is just a.
What he's doing is brilliant to start with, but then to say, listen, you guys need some help. I'm willing to help you out. Here's what I can do for you. That shows what the camaraderie of model railroading and model roaders is.
Yeah, like I said, he reached out to me today, and we've been part of like some conference calls with other members of the club, and like I said, we've kind of tossed ideas back and forth about how we would incorporate little details from the club that he remembers into the car. So, so it's interesting to be involved in the process of actually developing a car, as tangential as us members are involved in the process. So, but like I said, it's still interesting to kind of see, to be involved in that process.
And eventually he's going to make an ANLS car of my layout. Eventually, when in a 40-foot freight car of that. I mean, it's just, but people should need to know Chris Palmieri is one of those ambassadors of the hobby that just wants to help people as much as they can and gets involved in wherever he can to help out. So good for you, Chris Palmieri and Home Shops. Everybody go to homeshops.net and you'll understand what we're talking about. It's really cool.
Yeah. I've already discussed with the board that, we're probably, we're going to have, we're going to buy at least 2 sets of, the cars that he's putting together. That way we have, an example of every single version of all the Crescent Lines cars that he's developing. So every number, every name, we're going to have at least 2 sets that are going to stay as permanent parts of our collection.
Attaboy, Chris, way to go.
Yep.
Okay, so you've raised so total of your 25,000. Like I say, I see 4,300 on GoFundMe. So do you feel like telling me like how much you got all together and how much you got to go? Because we can hopefully some of the people that are listening will. And you guys are happy to. I think this is always important to mention. Like it's like when I do my walk every year, my One More Year Foundation walk thing that I do where I raise money for the hospital. You guys aren't looking for $100 from everybody. You're looking for $5 for whoever can afford it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think we're just under between the GoFundMe and like I said, private donations. We're right under 9,000. And so the way I was thinking about it the other day is that if we have if the amount of people that normally go to Amherst, which is roughly 20,000 people,
yeah,
if those people donated $2 a piece, which is less than a pack of KD couplers, we would be through the moon and over our goal. So, it's doable.
Yeah, it's very doable. It's just a matter of getting the word out there and getting the word out. And getting people to understand just exactly how bad the damage is. Because, I mean, holy smokes, you guys took a pretty good hit there. And you guys own that property, don't you?
Yeah, we we do own the property. We're completely 100% responsible for the upkeep and the grounds and security and the whole thing. Yeah. So it like I said, it's it in some aspects it's a blessing, and and in some aspects it's rough, especially when you're dealing with with a storm, because now every bit of that damage is your responsibility to fix, and the
downside of having your own property. So what could you pass along to other clubs that you've learned? Like, it sounds like the number one thing you've learned more than anything else is make sure you got some decent insurance in place.
Yeah, make sure all your insurance is up to date. But more importantly, if you are a train club, I mean, the founding members of our club, they had the foresight to incorporate. So we are a corporation. So one of the challenges of being a club and being incorporated is, there's obviously responsibilities as a corporation, because when you have visitors, there's liability insurance and things of that nature. But there are other responsibilities in terms of record keeping and keeping record keeping and keeping keeping minutes of your meetings, and staying up to date with your insurance policies. I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself.
No, it's okay. It's overwhelming. Like I can tell. Like I say, I know you well enough to know that you're a guy that takes the responsibility of being the president seriously, and you feel like you want to be the guy that if you happen to be the guy that's there, that's the president when the hurricane comes, and you want to be the guy to lead them out of the darkness. I understand that. And that's why I wanted to have you on here. And I mean, we'll talk about it again. It'll be an interesting ongoing story for people. I just feel like it's seriously, and do as much as, like you say, you don't want to be the guy you don't want to be the captain of the ship when it goes down.
Yeah, I mean that's you flatter me, but it's you know I you know it's I guess I have a really good personal sense of duty, and you know and I get that from my dad. My dad was in the military, and he's been through a lot worse things than I have. So and and that's kind of incumbent upon me to challenges like this. You face them, and you get over them, and you move on. So
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a sort of a timeline you're working to try to get things back in better shape? I know a lot will depend on how your funding goes, but is there some sort of rough timeline you're looking at?
uh I mean, at least we would like for at least things to be done to where where we can be in the club. The roof is watertight. We would like to have that probably hopefully by second quarter of this year, which I think it's just doable. So getting the roof watertight is
No,
is
yeah.
is the primary goal, and then after that, it's the biggest challenge is going to be replacing the insulation, and repairing the ceiling, and then bringing the trains back.
So right now you haven't even got it to the point where you've like it looks like pretty much do you have to replace the whole roof or
For it to be safe, we don't have to necessarily replace the whole roof. But in order to so so in order to the roof has three large holes in it. According to our structural engineer, Mr. Dennis Foss, we can legitimately repair those and keep everything watertight by just basically covering squaring out the hole and basically patching it up as long as it can structurally cover three rafters. So once we do that, then do a layer of underlayment and shingles, that will make the roof watertight.
okay?
And then we can kind of proceed from there. And
Was there
then
any structural damage to your trusses, or are you okay on that?
he said that there might have been some. I haven't personally gone up in the attic and looked, but he's kind of peered through some of the holes on the roof. But he says that he says that if there is structural damage to the rafters, that that can be repaired without having to basically remove the whole rafter. There are
Right.
ways to. I think he said
Sister up another rafter to it. Yeah.
Yeah, sister up. Yeah, that's exactly the term he used. That we can do that and then close up all the holes.
See,
So
now
that's
I've learned something tonight. I've never heard that term, sister up another rafter. But you basically just put a whole new rafter right beside it and screw it all together and boom.
Screw it and glue it together. Actually, depending on code, mostly you have to nail them because screws will tend to shear more than nails
Oh, really? Eh?
when it comes to loading. So a lot of times for rafters and beams and stuff like that, where you're beefing up floor joists or floor beams, you have to use a nailing pattern versus screwing because the screws will shear off under load.
Holy mackerel!
So there you go.
I'll make sure to bring that up.
Yeah. And see, when I built my house, I screwed the whole floor down. I went
There you
nuts
go.
with screwing the whole
Yeah.
thing together.
Glue and screw.
Yeah.
And if I bring that up, he'll probably lower his glasses and look at me over his glass and be like, "Say that again."
So what have you got covering the holes now? Like tarps?
Yeah, we basically have blue tarps right on over the holes right now.
That's the business I should have got into, was the blue tarp business. And I
Blue
wonder,
tarp, orange tarp business. Yeah.
yeah, I wonder why they became blue tarps. I wonder why they're not green tarps or yellow tarps. Blue seemed to be the color of choice.
Yeah, I can't comment on that. I have no idea.
Oh, you can comment. Nobody will say anything. Go ahead, comment. But blue tarps, the blue tarp.
The blue tarps consortium is dictated that we shall sell blue tarps only.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you got the guys who are there and are upset, and they formed their orange tarp offshoot. So they're fighting with the blue tarp guys, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a mess.
oh, it's nasty. The tarp business is nasty.
The tarp business is a rough game.
Yeah.
It would be a shame something happened to that hole. You put a blue tarp over it.
Yeah.
Okay, what about yourself? What's happening with your model railroad world?
I mean, I've been just so consumed with this that I have my little workshop in here that I'm working on. That I work on some other little small projects, but most of what I work on usually goes right back to the club. Um, I've been working. I do have I have 3 Santa Fe units that are on my workbench right now that I'm working to weather.
Like if you were to build a home layout, what would it be? Would you build freelance? Would you build what is your thing? What is your go-to?
My favorite railroad is the Seaboard airline, which is a predecessor of the of CSX. That's the S in Seaboard in CSX. So that's one of the things that I kind of gravitate towards.
Where does Seaboard run from and to mostly?
It started in Virginia, and then it would run all the way through Florida. I think all the way to Miami. Yeah, and then it did actually make a there was part of that line that did actually run into New Orleans, and that was as far west as they went. If you take the Amtrak going out of the city, you can actually still see some of the mileposts that still say SAL on them, which is the Seaboard airline from the Amtrak. You can still see those on the going out of the city.
So how did the Seaboard end up catching your eye?
That was the after I had graduated from the lifelike sets of my of my childhood and moved into my my teenage years, the first somewhat nice locomotive that I ever got was an Athearn locomotive, an Athearn Blue Box locomotive that I picked up at a hobby shop in Newport, Rhode Island, which is New Haven country. And it was in Seaboard livery. So and it was a black locomotive with red and yellow stripes, and it was an SD45. I still have it, but that's how I got into Seaboard, and then I just kept going down the rabbit hole. So I looked at all the iterations of their paint schemes, and they had a bunch of different blue box kits of boxcars and cabooses and things like that. And I just, like I said, I would go to different shows when I was growing up, and I would always look through that for that road name or the initials of that road name. I'd go through crates and crates of blue box Athearn kits, and and I would always I'd come up with 2 or 3, and that's just, and I just kind of stuck with it.
And it was the route of courteous service.
Yes.
It was an American railroad which existed from April 14th, 1900 until July 1st, 1967, when it merged with the Atlantic Coastline Railroad.
Yep.
It's a long
became
time.
Seaboard Coastline.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
then after that, they merged with Louisville and Nashville, didn't they? When there was the family lines.
Yep. Louisville and Nashville.
Which eventually took over Clinchfield, I believe.
Clinchfield, Central Georgia. I think Monon was in there. And then when CSX came along, that brought in the B&O, the C&O, Western Maryland, and that's what became CSX.
That's cool. That's cool. There is so much. I think railroading is such a historic. It's such a look into the history of the of the 1900s.
Oh, certainly is.
Like all these, like in the 60s, like the Seaboard coastline and all these cool railroads, and then the Nashville lines, and it took in the Clinchfield, and I always find that to be that could be a series of podcasts right there. It's just looking at all those railroads from the first half of the 19th century.
Yeah,
as they
all the fallen flags.
Yeah, all the fallen flags as they slowly got swallowed up, because they were most of them were really going concerns. Like the Seaboard coastline was a real going concern until it, got time. I guess most of these railroads it was passenger service, the lack of passenger service that really did most of them in, I guess, eh?
Well, the Seaboard airline and while they did have an extensive passenger service, they did have a lot of freight business as well. So, and to this day, the Amtrak still maintains one of the Seaboard Airlines flagship train names, which is the Silver Meteor, and that goes all the way from New York to Miami. And even as a child, and I didn't even know this when I did it as a child, I actually rode on the Silver Meteor, the Amtrak version, of course, from South Carolina to Florida, and then and it would be years later when I got that blue box Athearn, and then I finally kind of put two and two together. So it was kind of, I don't know, it was maybe it was fate. Who knows?
I think the Meteor goes past me when I'm riding my bike down in Florida.
Does it?
Yeah, because it goes through Sanford, Florida.
Okay.
And
you also see the auto train there too.
Oh yeah, it goes right by me. My bike trail crosses that route, and I see those trains. I saw one on Tuesdays, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing that line's used for. But it's used, for those trains every day. All right.
Are you familiar with a channel on YouTube called Distant Signal?
Yeah. I want to interview. That's Dan Harmon.
Yeah,
I absolutely got to interview him for the podcast.
Yeah, I listen to I watch all of his stuff all the time, and he really, I find all the history that he goes into of all the different lines and how they crisscrossed all these different towns. I find that fascinating because he really does a nice job with that, and the production with the maps and and then he goes to the individual stations and finds what's left, and I'm a big fan of his, and I anytime something comes out by him, I'm watching it that day or the next day.
Dan. So it's called Distant Signal. It's on YouTube. It's a fella named Dan Harmon, and I mean I've had him on my list of guys to contact now for like over a year because I stumbled onto his YouTube videos one night, and I mean they're very watchable. Like they're interesting.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And he's out of Tampa, somewhere near Tampa is where he lives, and he does all of Florida and occasionally other places too. And it's really good stuff. Really, really good stuff. What else do you have to tell us? Anything?
Well, as far as getting back to like what I would do for a railroad, personally, I think for me personally, I think just a small switching layout would be great. Would be great for me. And like I said, I definitely like this. I definitely like the Seaboard airline. They have if you ever look at some of the history books on there, they have some really interesting paint schemes that they did, whether it was for their passenger trains or even some of their freight locomotives. They were really I guess you could say expressive with their paint, and a lot of when you look at a lot of railroads, that's paint is one of the places where they try and save money. They they have the simple schemes or it's all black or it's just very basic lettering. But they even on their switchers, they kind of had some some dynamic paint schemes that that really do stand out when you think about all the other either railroads of that era or that or in that area. So that's one of the things that that's interesting for me for that.
Small switching layouts. That's going to be the way of the future for a lot of people, don't you think? Because people are so much more connected now with each other. Like, I mean, you must belong to some Facebook groups, and you've made acquaintances of people all over the place.
Oh yeah. Like I said, it's just it's definitely more convenient if you don't have if you don't have the space for the basement empire. I mean, heck, in Louisiana we can't even have basements. So that it it like I said, it's definitely more doable than like I said, like a big basement layout or even a whole room layout. And and if you grow beyond that, you can always add on.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Um,
What excites you about the hobby these days?
well, Lionel, let me. Can you excuse me for a little while? I need to use the facilities here.
A
No.
nature break.
Yeah,
No,
nature break.
No, I can't. We can't. We don't ever do that. We can't let you go.
That's why we come in with the gallon jugs.
Yeah, exactly.
An empty beer bottle, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, I'll be right back. Okay.
Okay.
So I guess it'd be a good time for some elevator music.
Yeah, this would be a great time for elevator music. I don't understand why he's making so much noise with his mic, though.
I don't know. No.
I think he just. I wonder if he's one of those.
No, I'm just looking at your picture. I thought the Seaboard was one they had that orange, green, and yellow.
That's what I thought too.
E units and stuff like that. Beautiful paint jobs way back.
Oh yeah, that's I'm fascinated by.
Oh, the old stuff, back, like all those first generation diesels, the paint schemes were,
I know.
like, hey, let's show, let's look at this, and then by the time we got, oh, Christ, that costs a lot of money. We better just paint her all black or green, like the Allegheny Lackawanna Southern,
Yeah, I know. And the thing that I can't get over is how much history, like these railroads, like the Clinchfield and Louisville, Nashville, and all these mid-sized railroads, like. I mean, they were all big businesses. They were all going concerns.
Oh, yeah, they were indeed.
And they all...
Buffalo Creek and Golly.
Yeah, like they all intermingled. And, it's like, I'm just fascinated by that whole era that's, it's not... I'm not talking about the 20s and 30s. I'm talking about, like, from the mid-40s up to the mid-60s. It just was a fascinating... That 20 years of railroading was a fascinating time.
When things are going, all of a sudden, ooh, things got bad and everything. You look at everything in the Northeast collapsing into Conrail.
Yeah, and I mean,
there's a whole pile right there that were doing good, and all of a sudden, times they changed hard for them.
I guess it was mostly. The lack of passenger trains. I mean,
I think that killed a lot because they relied on passenger and somewhat. I think the mail that went with the passenger to pay a lot of bills. But after the war, that's when. The highway system and the road transport got going and the airlines got going. And then, as fancy as the trains tried to make themselves, you look at all the streamliners that came out after the war.
Yeah.
And then, that was the last hurrah and that was it.
I wonder if it's a case of, from 1950 on, diesel came in and a lot of these railroads, it was really a boom for these railroads because it wasn't so hard to maintain Jeep 7s and, Jeep 9s and all that stuff. It wasn't
compared to steam locomotives.
Yeah. And that was the last surge that pushed them into the 60s. But it just seems like so many railroads died between 1965 and 1980.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating time. Fascinating slice of history in North America.
Yeah. I think a lot of that, in addition to the, to passenger service going away, that was, I'm sure that was the big, the interstate highway system was being built. A lot of things were switching from even just from railroad, but to trucking. So that had a devastating effect on that. It was more convenient to just build a loading dock with some cement as opposed to, a dock with a spur track to it,
And now, here we are, some 60 years later from that time, and railroads seem to be flourishing again. I think, anyways. I mean, container trains and intermodal and all the stuff you see. I mean, I think from a freight standpoint, the big railroads are flourishing. At least I think so, anyways.
Yeah. Well, I'm lucky down here. Like I literally have trains that go by my house, maybe not even a block away. And then even at work, I'm 2 blocks away from, a going rail line. The one that that goes by my work is the New Orleans Gulf Coast, and they seem to be expanding like crazy. They're building brand new sidings right up the street from me. I mean the ties and the rails are stacked up as far as the eye can see. That they're like I said, that they're building these sidings. So it there is definitely room for rail to expand and be a little bit more prevalent. Plus, the efficiency of say a two-man crew pulling 100 cars when you think each one of those car loads could be three truckloads.
Yeah.
And then the efficiency of having a two-man crew that can basically pull 300 truckloads, even if it's just from one metropolitan area to the next, that kind of efficiency, you just it's I see it every day in terms of with the supply chain issues that we've been having, how much more that's starting to make sense.
Yeah, it sure is. All right. So where are we at here? We're gonna ask people. We're not asking. We're telling people about the GoFundMe thing.
Yes.
You guys are desperately wanting to get your roof fixed. That's your number one goal. Do you have a cost of what it's going to cost to fix the roof?
So to completely replace the roof, it was around $22,000 because our building is 4,000 square feet, which is relatively sizable. And the other thing too is that in addition to just putting on the shingles, we actually have to replace the plywood underneath.
Yeah.
Which actually, let me back up. It's not what's underneath the shingles isn't actually plywood. It's because of the history of our building, which was originally a World War II Army barracks. It's actually planks that span
really?
that span the rafters. Yeah.
Wow. Like 1x12 planks?
I believe so. Yeah.
Wow. So are they going to replace the planks with planks, or they're going to, wherever they need to, they're going to replace the planks with plywood?
No. They have to replace all the planks with plywood.
Okay.
Yeah, because
so just to get the roof fixed, just to get the roof back to a watertight, make the building watertight, it's $22,000.
To fix the roof in its entirety and make it watertight, it's $22,000.
Wow. And you guys had no insurance for that, really?
Yeah, so we had fire insurance on the building.
And you had no storm. So have you since gotten storm insurance?
So it's weird how the insurance thing has to work. So in order for us to get a full wraparound policy, what we first have to do is the building technically is unoccupiable right now, to use their term. So we have to get an insurance policy so they can work on the building for, obviously for the benefit of the contractors should something happen. So
first you have to get an insurance policy just for them to work on the building?
Yeah.
So how are you going to fix it? Like how's that going to work? Well, now I'm confused. Are you confused, Bruce?
No, it's one of these construction things where you got people coming in to fix stuff. You need to show that you got some protection for those people in place to fix it. So it's one of those strange things that happens in the construction world.
Is that kind of like you go to the bank to borrow money to start a business, and they say, well, as soon as you have $200,000, which is what you need to start the business, they'll loan you the $200,000?
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So
you need insurance. So how are you doing that? Do you have to fix the building in order to get the insurance for them to fix it? Or is there some sort of rider you can get, or how does that work?
So based on what I've talked, based on the insurance companies that I've talked to and gotten quotes from, and we basically have to buy a policy, and it's not even the policy doesn't even have to last a year, but it basically, we have to buy an insurance in the building just in case they get hurt on our property while they're fixing it, and so that basically covers the building for not only if they get injured on our property, but if God forbid we should have a fire, another storm, or something, some other calamity that should befall us.
So have you gotten that insurance?
Well, that's what we're thinking. We're working on that because once we get that policy, say we buy it for 6 months or a year, if there are any kind of delays in the construction process, whether it's the roof, whether it's because they can't get shingles or they can't get plywood or they can't get this or that, then that all factors into, obviously, the term of the policy obviously affects the price. So there's a lot of moving parts.
Let's cut to the chase here. How much is the insurance going to cost? Do you know?
I want to say, to be honest with you, I haven't looked at it in probably about a month or so.
Well, it doesn't matter that much.
Yeah.
It's just like a ballpark figure. Like, is it $82,000 for insurance? Is it $825? Like,
no, it's. I think the policy might be like a couple $1,000s.
Okay. So right now you have no insurance on that building?
We still have the fire insurance. So that's the basic policy that's, I guess, it's required by the state. So, and we were through basically an act of the Louisiana legislature, we were able to kind of extend our policy. In fact, everybody in Louisiana that had damage from Ida was able to kind of extend their policy so that insurance companies wouldn't be able to throw them off their rolls, because now they pose a risk to their business. So we were able to extend our policy, and we do have, like I said, a basic policy on the building. But then once we finally engage a contractor, we do have to have further insurance on the building for the liability of anybody who could be working on the building. And then once all the construction is done, once the roof is changed, the insulation is removed and reinstalled, ceilings are fixed and all that, the big major stuff that we as members can't necessarily do ourselves, then and only then will they actually quote us on a full wraparound policy for the building, so that we can open up to the public and be totally covered if someone should slip and fall, if somebody should have some butterfingers and sticky fingers and walk off with something, then and only then will they quote us on that.
Wow, you guys are up against it right now, eh?
Yeah, like I said, it's not fun. But again, it's
So are you guys meeting? Like, are you guys meeting at houses, people's houses and stuff? Or are you just not even meeting, or what's the?
So we are, we do keep open lines of communication. Like I said earlier, with the text messages, we do visit the club. The club does have. We were able to. One of our members actually helped to restore our power to the building. So we do have, we do have lights, we do have electricity, we have internet, believe it or not, and we do have air conditioning. So we can go in the building, but once we start that construction process, then and we fall under that policy, there are certain limitations to access that would be there would be certain limitations to access for the members once that process begins.
Sounds all very complicated. Doesn't it sound complicated, Bruce?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, sounds very complicated.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we'll call it a day. So, anything else you want to leave us with here? That just anybody that can help, please help, kind of thing.
Yeah. Like I said, any help that you can bring to the Crescent City Model Railroad Club, we would take it with open arms, and you know, as much as as sad as our situation is, I am hopeful, and I'm determined to bring the club back, and so that we can bring model railroading to to the New Orleans area, and have a place for model railroaders to feel at home.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll put the link on the page and everything, and hopefully, a few, like you say, the main thing is to let people know that, $10. If you got $10, that's great. You're not looking for the world. You're just looking for some help.
Yeah, like I said, absolutely. Every little bit helps, and every little bit of exposure that we have, um, you know, you know, you know, from podcasts, from YouTube, from Facebook, from what Chris Palmieri's doing, that it goes a long way, and
Yeah, exactly.
we've made a lot of progress so far. We still have a long way to go, but we're grateful for all the help that you and the AML Nation can give us. And like I said before, I'm determined
Good.
to bring this back.
All right. I think this is the end of an episode, isn't it, Bruce? Seems like
I'm thinking
it's an episode.
Yep.
I'm having an episode. So there's a chance then we saw each other at the AML dinner on Saturday night then.
Yeah, there was a chance.
What else are you going to be doing on Saturday night? We're actually recording this 2 weeks before Springfield, 2.5 weeks before Springfield. So you're going to fly up to stay at your parents' place again? Oh no, you're staying at a hotel now. You don't want to see your parents.
No, I'm gonna. That would be. No, I'm gonna see my parents. I'm gonna see them. Basically when I come in and when I leave. So, and we'll have a good day at each end to see each other. So, yeah. So
Are you married yet?
Nope. Still trying to find that right woman.
All right. Do you live? Are you bachelorette? Are you you live by yourself or?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, you must have how many bedrooms do you have there?
I have officially 3, but one of them is my workshop. So
yeah, and the other one you could put a whole layout in there.
Absolutely.
Do you own a house or are you renting?
I'm renting currently. Okay. I was looking to buy a house, but it's the market's upside down here. Yeah. So.
And it'd be hard to. Would you try to? Is there like suburbs that are easily accessible to New Orleans?
Yeah, there are. And in fact, our club basically is in a suburb. It's in Metairie, Louisiana, which is basically 10 minutes from the airport, and then roughly halfway from the airport to New Orleans proper. So,
did you tell me that? Is it in a pretty good neighborhood or?
It's about 50-50.
Okay. All right. So yeah. I'm trying to find here. I'm trying to find you guys. How do you spell Crescent? CRESCENT. All right, city. All right, model. I'm on GoFundMe, seeing if I can just just search in. Yeah, there it is. So if you put in Crescent City and Model Railroad Club, it'll come up on GoFundMe.
Yep.
So it's not that hard to find. Plus, we'll put links and stuff like that. All right, Bruce, can you give out our email address?
Yes, I can. Our email address. Please let us know your thoughts, or if you got any ideas to help Greg and the gang out, send us an email, modelerslife@gmail.com. That's modelers with 1 L, modelerslife@gmail.com.
Now we got a website, amodelerslife.com. And if you get on that website and you just scroll down a little bit and you click on a picture of the moderately agitated mailboy in a particularly agitated state, boom, the email is the address is automatically set there for you. And all you got to do is put in the title and the text of your email, and away you go. So it's really easy to send email now. And we love getting email. It's one of my favorite things to do is read email, good or bad. We like the ones with constructive criticism, and we like the ones that tell us we're great. They're all fun to read. What else do we need? Oh yeah, and if Greg, do you have a Modeler's Life T-shirt?
I do not.
Huh.
Well, have we got news for you?
Yeah. If you go to Midwest Model Railroad, and there you are, have you ever ordered from Midwest Model Railroad?
I have not, but I will in the near
Have you ever
future.
listened to the podcast? Have you ever listened to the podcast? What's your favorite part? How often do you listen to the podcast?
A couple times a week at least.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
Okay, so you stay up pretty much.
I tried to stay pretty current. I was I think I made my way all the way through the through your conversations with Tony Custer, and I found that was very interesting. And then the last one I did was with is it Matt Boyd?
Yes, that was interesting. Resourced rails.
Yeah.
Man, that was interesting too. That was a good one. All right. Well, you're going to be now. We're going to have. It's a return visit with Greg Javanello, and now he's the president of the Crescent City Model Railroad Club, and one of the oldest. You guys must be like one of the oldest clubs in America, eh?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not quite sure who is the oldest club. But if you think about it, when MR was first published was in 1948. I mean, we were formed, 8 years after that. So we've been around.
Wasn't MR first published in 1934 or something?
Indeed, it was January 1934, first issue
was
by
it
All
34?
Combat.
I was off by a decade. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you were still only 22 years after. I'm sure there's clubs out there that have been there. I'm sure, like in New York City and Chicago, there's clubs that are older, but still, you're still got to be one of the oldest, and it's got a lot of history. The Crescent City Club. Yep,
a lot of like I said, Andy Sparandeo is a founding member, and we've hosted regional conventions in the past for the NMRA, and like I said, we've gone through so many different iterations of our layout. There's definitely some history there.
Yeah, it's just cool to see all these. Say there's people here that have donated $10 and $20. So here's a guy that's donated $5, which is exactly what we're saying. It can be.
Donate what you can afford.
Yeah, donate what you can afford. You don't have to be donating $50 or $100 if you get $5, and you can help these guys out, because it sounds like you guys are up against it and you need all the help you can get, because you got to get that roof fixed. You got to get the insurance. Then you got to get yourself squared away so you can have proper insurance. So if this happens again, you'll be covered.
Yeah. It's, like I said, it's a daunting task.
Well, anyways, if you go to Midwest Model Railroad, and I'm sure eventually you'll order something there, they're in Independence, Missouri, and they're one of our favorite model railroad stores. They have 15,000 square feet now. They started out 10 years ago in their basement. Now they have 15,000 square feet. Don't tell me this hobby's dying. And you go there, their URL is midwestmodelrr.com. And if you just go there and you scroll across their navigation bar all the way to the right and click on AML, boom, you are in a wonderland of AML shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, whatever you could possibly need. There's pictures, there's t-shirts with hot dogs on them. There's t-shirts with Fred the Sock on them. Just everything you could possibly need.
So do they still have some of the mini Lionels available?
At Mini Prints, they always have mini Lionels available. And how many do you think you'd buy?
Oh,
he comes in all popular scales.
Okay.
I love that. That's my favorite. Whenever I get around Bernard, I can't help but saying, "So, how many of the Mini Prints did you make today?"
We'll put one.
Did that blow right by you? How many would you like to buy? Mini Prints. How many would you like to buy?
So
it's a tough crowd, Lionel. It's a tough crowd.
It's a tough crowd.
Ooh, tough crowd.
What I was going to say is I want to buy. I was going to buy at least 4, and we're going to put one in every yard once the Crescent lines is all back up and running, and that way, you finding Lionel will be part of our official scavenger hunt on our layout.
Oh, there you go. I bet that's popular. You probably do that during an open house or something, do you?
Yeah, we have little hidden details, little jokes that are kind of hidden throughout the layout, little gaffs and stuff like that. So you will be part of the official Crescent City Model Railroad open house scavenger hunt.
Beautiful.
Okay, so I want you to stay in contact with me. So, like, maybe in 6 months we can do like just 15 or 20 minutes and give everybody an update of where you guys are at.
Absolutely.
All right. And as soon as you send in your check for $382.57, we'll broadcast this podcast.
Awesome.
Broadcast the podcast. I'm a poet and don't know it.
There you go.
Are you ready?
Yes.
He was going, huh? What?
You had to think about
dramatic pause. Dramatic pause.
Yes, there you go.
You had to think about that for a minute, didn't you? Well, Greg, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life, and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
Happy rails to you.
While in Busted Knuckle, guests of A Modeler's Life podcast stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late-night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.